In this video, I'm going to take you through how I made this 1/18 scale building, including the tips and tricks I gave to my buddy Dom over at ToyDOMination, who's building an entire city fight battleground in his backyard. Hi, I'm Adam, and I like to make things to play games with. Board games, miniature games, tabletop RPGs, and games with Hello? Dom! Uh-huh. You want to do what? That's madness! Count me in. Whilst pondering why I decided to make Dom sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, I got to work sketching ideas for a backyard battleground, the largest terrain project that I've even considered.
So my buddy Adam said, hey, why not use some foam?
EVA foam to be precise. You'll want a locking retractable craft blade, a sharpener, steel rulers, hot glue gun with plenty of sticks, matte Mod Podge, water-based house paint, and a selection of brushes. You know what scissors are. A scalpel or X-Acto with a thin handle, rattle cans, and something to seal it with. And with the ideas formulated and the tools and materials ready to go, it's always important to pick the right tool for the job. Keeping the knife as sharp as possible is probably one of the most important points to emphasise. You really do want to be sharpening it after every 2 or 3 cuts. Dom, hi, just checking in. How many fingers have you got right now? You did what? Dude! If you want to find out what happened, go check out Dom's video over on his channel. Trigger warning bodily injury. In place of trying to make windows from scratch, I found an STL file on Thingiverse, resized it to suit my needs. You can live without this step, and it does take quite a bit of time to get the sizing right. But if you're making a diorama or backdrop, it's well worth the effort. I didn't spot this until after I'd printed all these, but it was an easy enough fix to fill in the gaps, add some pieces of timber, and get them ready for a coat of primer and paint. We just need some walls to put them in. If you double skin EVA foam, you end up with a thickness around 20 to 25 millimeters, depending on the texture you have on the inside.
Alright, so I took Adam's advice and I started double layering this because this was bucking worse than my knees when I do squats.
It's imperative to move fast when you're using the hot glue gun, and you definitely want to make sure you've got a full glue stick each time you start a new piece. Wipe the excess with scrap foam, not your finger. Banana for scale, because it's easier to measure than eagles per cheeseburger. Adding architectural details such as window sills and lintels with thin strips of craft foam.
Oh, puppy noses. One of the issues I ran into was I put on these foam sheets and they have adhesive backings, but it's not sticking up.
There's no telling whether or not all the materials you use are always going to work together. So to perfect Barbie's dream kill house, we just have to experiment. If you spotted this sketch in the intro sequence, here's how I turned it into a detail for the model, using EVA and craft foam rectangles, some PE foam strip, and every burlesque performer's favourite. I added magnets so I can take the rear wall off for playability, and some simple interior walls to block line of sight and support the next floor. You can add as much or as little detail as you need. And I'm very aware that this one building has probably taken twice as long as it took Dom to build an entire city for the battlefield in his backyard. There's that magnetic back wall. And the floor lifts straight out.
Adam, since I did this video's length, what's one thing you would have done differently than I did?
Well, there's those shoes you wore to the prom, that girl you dated in college, you know, the one with the raccoon, and then that one time at band camp.
Okay, what's one thing you would have done differently with the buildings, smartass?
Ceiling. Mixing house paint with matte Mod Podge, thank you Jeremy of Black Magic Craft, not only covers any Barbie pink craft foam you've used, it actually provides a protective seal that also helps bind everything together. Although it's not a quick process and the drying time really adds to the build time, although it gives you a fantastic base for your first colour. If you want to check out the incredible scale of what Dom's doing in his backyard, or join us for one of the backyard battles, I'll leave a link to his video and channel in the description.
This in here, I used spray paint for, but this in here, I'm going to use some house paint. Yep, I'm stirring with a stick. I'm a savage.
We don't need to be subtle when painting terrain. Slather it on in thick coats with a stippling motion if you want to avoid brush strokes. I used a rattle can for the interior variation and even used some more house paint for the floor, catching edges and ledges to give it a finished look. I dry brush my finished piece first with a light grey and then a second pass with a white. If only I could dry brush this fast, really. I discovered my love of pigments via James of Rebel Base Builds. They're a fantastic, easy and quick way to add some shading and detailing. But they do need sealing to ensure they don't disappear at the first sign of fingerprints or rain if you're leaving it outside, as I know Dom is. I put the windows in place, pushing them back to the centre so they cover the join between the two pieces of foam. Adding shading to the corners of the building's interior before finishing the front fascia. With a quick spray of dark brown to represent areas of dampness, and it's time to add the doors. And if you'd like to see how I made these, drop a note in the comments and I'll consider making a video on that process specifically. Being foam, it is flexible enough to move out of the way, but you still need to be careful not to remove the Mod Podge and paint. Add posters, signs and symbols for that near future look. Remember that sketch? Well, here's the payoff.
From over here, it looks okay, but when you get in here, you're like, good lord, Dom, do you know how to cut?
Pick the right tool, the job.
I just need to be able to put infantry in there and have them be able to shoot out, and really, ideally, I need a shoot house style. And if we're being a fair comparison, I needed to whip these out in order to get a city built out here. So whereas his is a model home, mine is a apartment building built in the Soviet era block. Just get them out there, put them up and move on. Doesn't really care if it's pretty, it's just got to serve a function, which is to hide infantry inside of it. That is a bookend that I spray painted to use as an archway or an entranceway.
Two different approaches, thousands of miles apart. One epic battle.
Although I love Adam's design, I'm not sure it's going to suit my needs because I have one other requirement of my buildings.
The first rule of City Fight Club is no smoking.
I'm going to need some of them to catch fire and burn down.
And whatever you do, don't
play with your toys like a grown-up.